Okay, let's have a closer look at all of the big stories moving the markets this week. We're joined by Anthony Chan. He is the former chief economist at JPMorgan Chase. Anthony, always a pleasure to see you. Thanks for taking time.
Good to see you, Sean.
Okay, what are some of the key takeaways from the markets? We've had a lot of volatility the last couple of weeks, and obviously newsflash, tariffs.
Well, I think the market has spoken, and the market basically tells you that whenever there is greater tariff uncertainty, there's nervousness in the bond market. You see the 10-year Treasury yield going up, and you see, of course, the equity market suffering. Whenever there is at least a glimmer of hope that we're moving closer to some sort of a resolution, perhaps the president saying that there was big progress with Japan, or perhaps the president saying that we are going to make a deal with Europe, having the leader of Italy in the White House, all those things are somewhat encouraging. But again, every time we get news that is encouraging, a few days later or even hours later, we get some discouraging news, and that's why the volatility continues.
Yeah, markets do not like this uncertainty. Let's focus on Nvidia. The tech stock saw a sharp decline Wednesday, more of a drop on Thursday on all the news of this U.S. restrictions on the certain chips that it is manufacturing, basically just to fit into the mandates that were on trades to China. Now that's up in the air. What does that do, and why is the Nvidia chief in China right now?
Well, it's clear that he certainly wants to make sure that in no way does China feel that Nvidia had anything to do with it. Remember that this older chip was approved by the prior administration, and to some extent almost not even mentioned early on that it was okay, that the newer chips were not going to be allowed to be used in China. But now, because China has become really good at engineering and making progress using the older chips, perhaps now they think that the older chips shouldn't be used. The problem for Nvidia is they made huge investments to produce these chips and build the infrastructure to produce them, because they were under the impression, and they were given direction by administrations, that it was okay to produce this chip. Now that you can't, guess what? Now they're going to have to take write-downs, they're going to lose money, and hence the announcement by Nvidia. But again, making sure that the Chinese realize that this in no way is something that Nvidia not only didn't have anything to do with it, but is cooperating to make sure that it's less painful for China.
Let's talk about Jerome Powell for a minute. He came out and said that all the tariff discussion, the uncertainty, simply isn't good for the markets. The president reacting the way Trump usually does when people criticize him. He's grumbling, says he wants rate cuts, and he wants Powell out of there, but he can't do it.
Well, right now he can't do it, but he's also done things that people thought he couldn't do. So that's why there's nervousness in the equity markets. But keep in mind that there was a time when this administration said, we're not going to focus on the federal funds rate or short-term interest rates. We just want to have the 10-year Treasury yield going down. The problem is that you've got the increased volatility, and you saw the 10-year yield going up, and now all of a sudden the focus goes back into the Fed funds rate. But keep in mind, tariffs are a tax. That means it slows down economic growth. Tariffs are also going to be passed on to the consumer. At least most of the surveys suggest that. The Wall Street Journal is already talking about it. Even the New York Post, a conservative newspaper, is saying that some companies are already publicizing surcharges are related to the tariffs. So that means inflation goes up. So what is Jerome Powell to do? If inflation is going up, that's a problem for one part of the mandate. And if economic growth is slowing down, that's another problem for the Federal Reserve. So again, when you have all this uncertainty, what do you think the Federal Reserve is going to do? They try to stay on the sidelines until they feel some of this uncertainty has dissipated.
Anthony, let's talk about two companies kind of going in the opposite direction right now. We have Netflix, earnings up about 13%, good news it's coming out there. And meanwhile, Google, at the same time, a judge has ruled that it has monopoly on online advertising technology. What's going on with those two companies?
Well, the two companies is that Netflix is relatively unscathed by the tariffs. They're able to move around much easier than other companies, so they're doing much better. Google, of course, having the problem of these regulators or tax authorities hindering their ability to make money.
Can I say
If these regulators deem that they're some sort of have monopoly power, it's going to be a problem, just like it will be a problem for Meta with this long trial that they're getting ready for.